Welcome to the fucking live watch-along news. I'm gonna be... Let me make myself a little bit bigger here. Just for a second. While people enter. We'll let people come in here. Yeah, people talking about Kenya. Kenya's doing stuff. Hello, Michael. Hi, Dad, part 2. Is that me? Hello, Skip. I'm going to give people a minute to file in here, but basically, hello, Sarah from Minnesota. Sounds vaguely familiar. We're going to be watching a lot of different statements here. Honestly, I don't know how long this is going to take, so settle in, pour yourself a drink. You left Instagram to watch the green screen. Yeah, well, you're going to be able to watch all the people who are talking in a minute here. It's going to be a lot better, believe me. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. All right, let's go. I sound Midwestern? Nope. Guess again. Somebody says I sound Midwestern. Tell me if you think I sound Midwestern. All right. We are starting with Ayatollah, Khamenei, who's the supreme leader of Iran. I'm going to make myself small here in the corner. All right, here we go. This is now there are 2 translations, and I just briefly skimmed them before I started this, and I didn't hear much overlap, so we're gonna watch them both because I don't speak the language that he's speaking, so I couldn't tell you which translation is more accurate.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Greetings to the people of Iran.
Can you all hear it? I know.
First of all, I would like to thank the martyrs of the recent
loud.
events. I would like to thank the martyrs scholars, who were truly and justly valuable to the Islamic Republic and served it.
This was today, by the way.
In the presence of God, they will continue to serve their nation.
Okay, the people who gave their lives, who died in the strikes he's talking about.
God willing, I extend my congratulations to the great Iranian nation for its victory over the Zionist entity.
Victory? All right, so they're calling this a victory.
Despite all the claims and hype, the Zionist entity was almost crushed and collapsed in the face of the Islamic Republic's strikes.
Ready to lose the hat and regrow the hair?
What a
With
inconsiderate...
Choose by Hairs, you can regain your hair and...
First of all, I would like to congratulate you for the victory against the Zionist regime. The Zionist regime almost collapsed under the blows of the Islamic Republic.
He's talking about Israel. Thank you, Gina.
The idea that such a blow from the Islamic Republic could enter the regime did not occur to them.
He is speaking very slowly.
the Zionist entity must know that the cost of aggression against Iran will be heavy, and this is what happened.
So he's saying the heavy cost is what they performed, was the missile strike that they performed?
We thank God who aided our armed forces as they penetrated the advanced, multi-layered Zionist defenses and razed many of their civilian and military sites to the ground. Of course,
some of the
this is an
missiles did
independent criminal
strike,
case in
get through the
international
Iron
courts. Anyone who hears these words will understand that there is another reality under these words.
What? Another reality?
The Islamic Republic of Iran won, and the Islamic Republic of Iran tried to minimize the impact of the attack on Iran.
See, now I'm really suspicious of this translation.
The American regime entered the war directly because it felt that the Zionist entity would completely collapse if it did not intervene, but it did not achieve any accomplishments. The Iranian nation is united, its voice is one, and it has stood together and supported the armed forces.
Thanks, Green Pea.
The
Appreciate
Americans
you.
failed to achieve anything significant by attacking our nuclear facilities. This is not a small incident. In one of his statements, Trump said that Iran must surrender. The US president is exaggerating matters to conceal the truth of what happened. The US president called for Iran's surrender, and this is beyond his control.
This translation's terrible. I've read a bunch of translations of that particular line.
Iran, with its history and culture, with its nationalism, but his statement revealed a reality. Americans have been in conflict with Islamic Iran since the beginning of the revolution. The Islamic Republic won this war and dealt a powerful blow to America by bombing one of its most important bases in the region, the Al-Adid Air Base.
So this is how he's reporting it to his people in Iran. This is how Iran is hearing the news.
The Islamic Republic's ability to reach America's main bases in the region and its ability to take action against them whenever it wants.
Saying that they proved that they could strike if they wanted to.
Bombing American bases could happen again in the future, and the cost to the enemy would inevitably be high. It is an important point for the people of Iran to know.
There you go. Alright, that was the Hindu Times translation. This is Al Jazeera. We're going to move on to the Al Jazeera translation. This is also like a different part of the speech or something. I don't know. It's pretty different.
Entity has been swaying under our blows. They would have never imagined to have been dealt these blows, but yet this is what had happened. We thank God Almighty for assisting our armed forces.
This was breaking news earlier today.
Enabled them to penetrate the multi-layers of
Ayatollah. Did I call him
set up
what I call him before?
by the
Ayatollah?
enemies. All
Sorry.
the military
Ayatollah.
and non-military positions came under our attack. All
I think I'm gonna roll.
Oh my goodness,
this
with
one.
the
Let's drop that file in
commercials.
here.
Wake me up.
He can bet.
these positions within the Zionist entity came under attack. the Zionist entity's aggression was met by lethal and fatal attacks, and we succeeded in destroying the enemy's capabilities. And this is a message that the Zionist entity must come to know. Any aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran will have a dear cost, a big and high price. This is what happened. Praise and pride to the Iranian armed forces, the Iranian people. Simply, the armed forces are part and parcel of the Iranian people. It is the Iranian people that provided, raised, and fostered
Yes, this is
those
the supreme leader of
armed
Iran.
forces personnel. Today, we have a robust, mighty armed forces. A second message of congratulations on the victory of our beloved Iran against the United States of America.
Victory
The
against the
United
United
States
States.
Immediately intervened and got involved
What do we
in
think
the
about
war,
that, chat?
simply for the reason that they have a firm conviction if they hadn't, the Zionist entity would be annihilated. That's why the United States had it in rescue and support of the Zionist entity. Yet they did not win any victory. They attacked our nuclear facilities, and this matter cannot go unpunished within the international venues. However, they failed to undermine these nuclear facilities. The United States President amplified their military operations, yet it later proved that they have been excessively exaggerating. It is known to all
So they've been
that
exaggerating
the outward position of the
the
Americans
damage
is
done by the strikes.
failure,
is what
as
he's
they
saying.
failed to destroy the Iranian nuclear facilities. That's why they continued with their attempt to magnify and amplify their attacks on our facilities in order to conceal their failure. The Islamic Republic of Iran dealt a heavy blow to the American forces when they targeted and attacked the American
heavy blow.
military base in Al Udeid in Qatar, causing grave damage to the base.
Grave damage to the base.
Those who
Very different from what
amplified
we're
their
hearing over here.
attacks on our nuclear facilities came out to downplay our attack on their military base.
He says that our leaders are downplaying the
What
attack.
matters is that the
I don't know.
Iranian armed
I don't know why
forces have
the
capability
voice of the
to
translator is
target
so
and attack
annoying.
any position they
Really doing him a
desire
disservice.
at any point of time. Similarly, the American military bases will come under our attack if the American forces direct any belligerence against Iran. The third message is, by virtue of the unity, solidarity, and harmony among our people, the entire population, one voice, one hand, standing side by side, rising above their differences. They rose up.
All right, face it. Your life is a complete mess right now.
So
The
unprofessional.
laundry's not folded. You haven't exercised in weeks. You're spent.
And stood by the side of the Islamic Republic of Iran and their armed forces. Not only that, they praised and commended the united ranks of our armed forces. The Iranian people have demonstrated their mettle and their unity against the belligerents initiated against the Islamic Republic of Iran. It is a message that our people are one voice, one hand, one block. The key message of my word here is that one of his speeches, the United States President said Iran must completely give
Surrender.
up and surrender.
Yeah.
Then the
He did
issue
say
is
that.
not our nuclear endeavors, yet our surrender. However, these words are much bigger than the US President himself.
Hello,
Iran
Galina.
is a deep-rooted empire, deep-rooted in history, with well-established civilization. That's why the word surrender is not within our vocabulary. The Iranian people mocked the words uttered by the US president. Since the victory of the Iranian revolutions, the West, namely the United States, maintained animosity against Iran under many false pretexts. Sometimes they came up with, under the guise of human rights, women's rights. Now they are coming with other pretexts about our civil nuclear endeavors. Their ultimate
he's
goal
saying that they are
is
civil
to
nuclear
see
endeavors.
Iran surrendering. Former US president did not publicly utter such words. Simply, these words are not acceptable at the global legal level. No president has the right to demand one sovereign people to surrender. The Iranian cannot and will not surrender. This is a key point in my message. Let the Iranian people know that the United States have deep-rooted animosity with Iran and the Iranian people, and they want us to surrender. This cannot and will not happen. Iran
What do you
is
think? Is this
mighty.
posturing? I mean,
established
Trump was
with
just meaning surrender in this particular case. Surrender to
civilization deep-rooted in
the
history,
uranium destruction,
vast
basically.
geography,
Not like surrender
and
as a people.
established culture, manifold bigger than the United
Someone say
States
sounds like Dracula
civilization.
struggling to
no
read.
one could imagine that Iran or the Iranians could surrender. Preposterous this is. Demanding Iran or the Iranian to surrender would bring
my legs
about
are
nothing but mockery. Iran and the Iranian people are
Black sheep in the
dignified
house.
and will remain standing tall by the grace of God the Almighty. And I
That
pray
other translation didn't have any of
to
this.
God Almighty to bestow blessings and grace upon our beloved homeland and our people, and may God have mercy on the Supreme Leader Al-Khamenei. May he rest in peace.
Don't miss out.
All right, that was Al Jazeera's translation of the Iranian leader's statements. We're going to move on to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's statements regarding the strike in Iran. I'm not sure if he gave this speech in English. I think it's probably also translated.
Dear citizens of Israel,
There you
in the
go.
12 days of Operation Rising Lion, we achieved a historic victory, and this victory will last for generations. We overcame two immediate existential threats, the threat of nuclear bombs and the threat of 20,000 ballistic missiles. If we had not acted now, the state of Israel would be standing close to the threat of destruction. But this did not happen, because at the critical moment, we rose up like lions. We roared like a lion, and our roar shook Tehran and echoed throughout the world. In our sources, it is said, with stratagems,
Lions
we shall
don't
wage war.
usually
The
use
surprising
ballistic
opening
missiles, but
strike of Operation Rising Lion will be recorded in the annals of Israel's wars, and it will be studied by all the armies of the world. In one blow, we defeated Iran's senior command, including 3 chiefs and many other senior officials. At the same time, we also defeated Iran's leading nuclear scientists. They were the ones who held on to knowledge. They were the ones who led the nuclear program. They who sought to bring destruction and death
so he's saying
upon
they
us.
killed the leaders
We
of their
destroyed
nuclear
the central
program.
enrichment plant in Natanz, the uranium mine in Isfahan, and the heavy water plant in Iraq. Our friend, President Trump, unambiguously joined our side. Under his leadership, the U.S. military destroyed the enrichment plant in the depths of the ground in Fordo.
This is the quickest way to clear out stuck poop.
I have to poop.
If any of you need to clear out stuck
Are they trying
poop,
to kill us? What?
We attacked dozens of facilities of the Iranian nuclear program, including laboratories and centrifuge production facilities. You certainly remember, 7 years ago, how in a deliberate operation of the Mossad, we brought Iran's secret nuclear archive to Israel. We then exposed Iran's nuclear program aimed at the destruction of the state of Israel. To President Trump, to the entire world, and to you, citizens of Israel. Today, during this operation, we completed the mission and destroyed the entire archive. This archive contained Iran's knowledge of nuclear bombs. We did this as well. For decades, I promised you that Iran would not have nuclear weapons. Indeed, in all of our brave operations, we brought to light Iran's nuclear program. And if anyone in Iran tries to implement this project, we will act with the same determination, with the same strength, to prevent such an attempt. I will now say, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. With the same strength, with the same determination, we destroyed Iran's missile production industry. We destroyed dozens of missile production facilities. We hit the missiles hard. In many cases, we destroyed them minutes before they sent the missiles of death to Israel. Iran's malicious intent to threaten Israel's existence for years. With ballistic missiles, this threat was also made.
so it's interesting because,
And
you
in
know,
relation
obviously
to the
he's
Iranian
saying something
regime,
very different.
We
He's saying
launched heavy strikes on the
that
evil
they-
regime. They
that
lost many
the strikes
more
were
elected
effective,
officials.
obviously,
We destroyed
and that they
the
destroyed a bunch of
headquarters.
stuff.
We attacked the
He's also
bases
saying
of
that
the
they were in
revolutionary
danger
cause. We attacked the bases
of
the
Iran
bases.
destroying
We harmed
Israel.
the symbols of government. And today, just a few hours ago, 1 hour before the ceasefire, we launched the hardest strike since the start of the war on the Ayatollah regime. We lost hundreds of police
Poppy's
officers
going
in the
wild
most
over here.
intense attack that Tehran has seen in the past 50 years. Citizens of Israel, I thank you, my friend President Trump and the United States, for their part in defending Israel.
Gina
and
says, are there
preventing
any other kind of
Iran's
missiles
nuclear
other than
threat.
missiles of
The
death?
United States' participation in the campaign, not only on the defensive
question.
side, but also on the offensive side, is a historic event. This has never happened before. It is a product of the political effort that I led, together with Minister Dermer, in front of President Trump and his team. And I must tell you, I have never had a great friend like President Trump in the White House, and I thank him very much for our shared work. There are huge messages for this, for the
It is a
national
Windsor.
security of Israel, for the security of each and every
Solid
one of
Windsor
you,
right here.
your children and grandchildren,
I know how to tie
and
a
for the
tie.
entire Middle East. Citizens of Israel, on October 7th, we were in the middle of a storm. We suffered the worst disaster in the history of the state. But thanks to the joint efforts of the government, the security forces, and you, the people, we knew how to recover and return to the rest of the war. Over 20 months, we ruled in the name of Iran, and we learned from it an unprecedented price, a price that is not imaginable that it will pay. But despite our remarkable achievements, we will not yield to the waves of euphoria. We are not worthy. We are not arrogant, quite the opposite. We have no intention of taking our foot off the gas pedal. We must complete the campaign against the Iranian army,
Oh,
to
no.
liberate Hamas, and to liberate all of our captives, the living and the missing as one.
Oh,
And to the
he's talking
missing
about Gaza
families,
now.
I say, we will not stop for a moment, even for a moment, including during the war, the efforts to bring back all of our captives home. Again, the living and the missing as one. We will not yield to this holy mission
Thanks,
until
Gina.
it is completed. And to the missing families, I say you, our heroes, will not fall to the ground, because their heroism and bravery is what will allow us to break the Iranian wall. Without the great achievements in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and against terrorism in Judea and Samaria, we would not have been able to reach Tehran. With the breaking of the
The great
Iranian wall,
achievements.
we will open a wall of peace and prosperity for the people of the region. And I tell you, also beyond the people of the region. We have already been working on this for a month, and the time will come to reveal our actions. We will immediately take action against anyone who is harmed, and we will bring the Israeli economy to new heights. This is already happening, citizens of Israel.
And sleep all the way down, all the way down. Did you know that more than 85% of people hate their jobs?
I'm getting an ad for
Most of them will
hypnosis
never
sessions
escape.
right
What's
now.
the
Do you guys
difference
believe in
between them and
hypnosis?
those who break free and live
I
extraordinary
don't.
lives?
We have paid a high price for this operation. We are all embracing the missing families, and we are all giving full support to all the injured, both physically and mentally, as well as to all the injured in this campaign since October 7th. Recently, I visited several cities that have suffered a great loss from the Iranian missiles. Many houses were destroyed, and as we promised the residents, we will rebuild them. Citizens of Israel, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, commanders and soldiers of the IDF, Chief of Mossad, David Barnea, officers of the Mossad, Commander of the Air Force, Tomer Bara, our brave pilots, what a wonderful job they have done. And to the officers of the IDF, to the head of the Navy, Rear Admiral Shlomi Binder, and to the intelligence, they have shown incredible creativity in identifying the enemy's hideouts. To the head of the National Security Council, Sachi Hanegbi, for leading the campaign, to the military secretary, Major General Roman Goffman, to the Home Front Command, to the Israeli police, to the medical and military personnel who have saved many lives. And of course, I would like to thank the Defense Minister, Israel Katz, and all the ministers and ministers of the government. They all stood behind the historic decision, and they all acted in their respective fields. All of them, without exception,
Galena says it feels like the
rose
Academy
to the
Awards.
height of the hour. But above all, I would like to thank you, citizens of Israel. This is a moment of national pride, a moment of unity, a moment in which every citizen of Israel can rise and say, together, we made the unbreakable. Together, we made the unbreakable. With a lion's strength, the people of Israel rise.
Do you think he actually
the
said that
Jewish
twice?
people live, and with the help of God, the people of the future will ensure the future of Israel.
כולם בלי יוצא מן הכלל התעלו לגודל השעה. אבל מעל הכל, אני רוצה להודות לכם, אזרחי ישראל.
Do you think the
זהו רגע של
translation was
גאווה
just
לאומית.
reading a transcript since it obviously wasn't going at the same time. This is just about the end here. Alright, so a little different from the Iranian Supreme Leader's words and description of what happened. Little bit different there, but some similarities. It was interesting to hear him kind of admit that that Iran posed a real threat to Israel. All right, we're gonna move on to the United States and see what we're talking about with Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense.
Well, good morning, everybody. Just arrived last night back from NATO, 2 days apart from my battle buddy, so it's good to see him this morning. Good to see you, Mr. Chairman. Where there was a historic outcome. I want to start with that real quick. I think there's so much news, so many things happening.
Skip says, isn't this super long? Yeah, this is a little less than an hour.
What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday
Get the translator.
game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term.
Shiny Element says, what does our Supreme Leader have to say?
Accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense. On actually
Hello to
investing
Romania.
in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security.
He seems a little more petty than the rest, I gotta say.
President Trump accomplished it. It
seems like he doesn't quite know how to handle the criticism.
We're here this morning because in hunting for scandals all the time, in trying to find wedges and spin stories, this press corps and the press corps miss.
He's going to open this by literally attacking the press
at NATO, which when you hear, I was in the closed door briefing. I wish there could have been cameras in there. When you heard the prime ministers and presidents of other countries, to a man and to a woman, looking at President Trump and saying, this never could have happened. Never would have happened. It seemed impossible 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 8 years ago. But here we are because of your leadership. If you asked them the question, I bet they'd say the same thing. But searching for scandals, you miss
of Trump's
historic moments, like recruiting. At the Pentagon.
Trump has been pushing for it.
Historic levels in the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. Yeah, maybe there'll be a little mention here or there, but because it was under President Trump's leadership, because Americans are responding to him as commander-in-chief, the press corps doesn't want to write about it. Or bring us to the topic of the moment.
What is he talking about?
Highly successful strikes in Iran.
He's
Let me read
so
the
hurt
bottom
that
line.
the press wasn't good.
President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history. And it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war. There's been a lot of discussion about what happened and what didn't happen. Step back for a second. Because of decisive military action, President Trump created the conditions to end the war, decimating, choose your word, obliterating, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities.
According to Iran, which we just watched,
some of the assessments that have been
that's
provided,
not what
because
they did over there.
whether it's fake news, CNN, MSNBC,
who knows,
or the New York
really
Times, there's been fawning coverage of a preliminary assessment. I've had a chance to read it. Every outlet has breathlessly reported on a preliminary assessment from DIA. I'm looking at it right now.
What's the difference between this and this?
What?
This
well,
will
one's
cost you
red,
$4 from a bargain
sir.
And this.
Again, it was preliminary, a day and a half after the actual strike, when it admits itself in writing that it requires weeks to accumulate the necessary data to make such an assessment. It's preliminary. It points out that it's not been coordinated with the intelligence community at all. There's low confidence in this particular report. It says in the report there are gaps in the information. It says in the report multiple linchpin assumptions are what this assessment. A linchpin assumption, you know what that is? That means your entire premise is predicated on a linchpin. If you're wrong, everything else is wrong. And yet, and still, this report acknowledges it's likely severe damage. Again, this is preliminary, but leaked because someone had an agenda to try to muddy the waters and make it look like this historic strike wasn't successful. I'm going to get to the chairman in a moment because he's going to lay out the
You can just say that those reports are false or early or lack information.
The DIA,
without being so like,
says this is a preliminary
I don't even know what the word
report and will continue to be refined as additional intelligence becomes available.
It's performative.
About the Israeli Atomic Energy
performative.
Commission. The devastating U.S. strikes on Fordo destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility inoperable. Have any of these quotes made their way into the New York Times or the Washington Post? MSNBC? CNN? Any of these quotes? How about this one? This is a new one from the UN, the United Nations.
So petty. Oh my goodness.
Certainly Israel.
Like if a baby was...
Here's the head of the UN Atomic Energy Agency.
My goodness, dude. He's
US
got the information.
Strikes caused
it was a good strike. You don't have to be a dick about
Take
it.
my word for it. How about the IDF's chief of staff? I can say here that the assessment is that we significantly damaged the nuclear program, setting it back by years. I repeat, years. The Iranian foreign minister, the spokesman. Our nuclear installations have been badly damaged, that's for sure. I'm sure that's an understatement. John Radcliffe, the director of the CIA, putting out a statement just last night. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by recent targeted strikes. This includes new intelligence from a historically reliable, very different than preliminary assessment, with low confidence. He's saying historically reliable and accurate source and method that several key Iranian nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over the course of years. CIA continues to collect additional reliably sourced information to keep appropriate decision makers fully informed. How about DNI Tulsi Gabbard yesterday?
Bro.
She writes, and I quote, new intelligence confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times.
He seems
Iran's
angry.
Nuclear
He seems
facilities
straight up mad.
Have been destroyed. Institute for Science and International Security President David Albright, overall Israel and U.S. attacks have effectively destroyed Iran's centrifuge enrichment program. Time and time again, I can go down the list. Those that understand, those that see, those that do proper assessments recognize that what the United States military did was historic. And again, before I pass it to the chairman, because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps.
Oh my God, he's going to continue just attacking the press directly?
It's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump.
Certainly there are conservative press in the room.
You have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it. Spin it in every way we can.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like the right forum for
the public mind
this kind of statement.
Our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times so that American people understand? How about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35? Or what it's like to man a Patriot battery, or how hard it is to refuel midair, giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that, because of the hatred of this press corps, are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful.
It's sad because, you know, like he has the point he's trying to make is a solid point. It's an understandable point that there isn't.
It's an important responsibility.
That people aren't recognizing how difficult what they did was.
Is leaked or peddled.
But the way he's saying it is just not the way. It's just not the way.
Is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that? How about we talk about how special America is, that only we have these capabilities? I think it's too much to ask, unfortunately, for the fake news. So we're used to that. But we also have an opportunity to stand at the podium and read the truth of what's really happening. And the reality is, you want to call it destroyed, you want to call it defeated, you want to call it obliterated, choose your word. This was an historically successful attack. We should celebrate it as Americans, and it gives us a chance to have peace, chance to have a deal, and an opportunity to prevent a nuclear Iran, which is something President Trump talked about for 20 years, and no other presidents had the courage to actually do.
Some things shouldn't be watered down.
Boy,
like a bold story.
This guy needs a drink. Oh wait, no, he probably shouldn't.
So with that, I want to hand it over to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. They've done technical analysis on this, not just on the strike, but also on our Patriot defenders on Al Udeid. And Mr. Chairman, I'll hand it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, and all of you. Thank you for being here. As a follow-up to my comments on Sunday's press conference, I wanted to give you a few updates this morning on something I'm honored to do as a chairman, and that's a chance to get to talk about some of our service members and the incredible things that they do on behalf of our nation. And I apologize ahead of time for the length and the detail.
Oh no!
First,
you don't
talk about our air defenders.
You don't want him to apologize for the length right up front. He knows it's going to be long and boring.
A little bit about the academics that went into the attack.
Should we watch it?
Should
we speed it up a little bit?
Penetrator weapon, and we're going to show a video that highlights the effects that weapon has. Of course, nobody was down inside the target, so we don't have video from the target. First, on Monday. As the president has stated, on Monday morning, we began to receive indications and warnings that Iran intended to attack U.S. bases in the region. That morning, building on the work that CENTCOM Commander Eric Kurilla had done, and on the orders of the president, Al Udeid and Al Udeid around the region, we assumed a minimum force posture. Most folks had moved off the base to extend the security perimeter out away from what we assessed might be a target zone, except for a very few Army soldiers at Al Udeid. At that point, only 2 Patriot batteries remained on base, roughly 44 American soldiers responsible for defending the entire base, to include CENTCOM's forward headquarters in the Middle East, an entire air base, and all the U.S. forces there. The oldest soldier was a 28-year-old captain. The youngest was a 21-year-old private who'd been in the military for less than 2 years. So let's put ourselves out there for a second. Imagine you're that young first lieutenant, you're 25 or 26 years old, and you've been assigned as the tactical director inside the command and control element. You, at that age, are the sole person responsible to defend this base. Listening next to you is your early warning operator, whose job is to notify you of imminent attack. There's 5 people inside a vehicle and 5 people outside of a vehicle around these, a total of, as I said, 44. By the way, you've sat in the Middle East for years, deployed over and over again, extended multiple times, always being prepared, but unsure of when that particular day will come that you must execute your mission and not fail at doing it. In this case, these Patriot crews were deployed from Korea and Japan as part of our U.S. forces there to ensure that we had the most capable missiles in the CENTCOM area of responsibility. As the day continues, you start to hear more and more chatter in the information space about an impending attack. And as the sun starts to set in the west, you get orders from your higher headquarters to make sure that your missile batteries are pointed to the north. There are just a few other teammates. It's hot, you're getting nervous, and you expect an attack. Outside of those Patriot vehicles, your hot crew, which is 1 NCO and 4 additional soldiers.
He's really painting a picture here.
Relinquishes control of those missiles to that young lieutenant inside the vehicle, and you wait. You know that you're going to have
make a movie about
2 minutes, 120 seconds to either succeed or fail. And then at approximately 12:30 p.m. on Monday, that's 7:30 p.m. in Qatar, as the sun sets in the west, Iran attacks. As the targets were detected, round after round of Patriot missiles are ejected from their canisters by an initial launch charge. Then the main solid rocket motor ignites. You can feel this in your body if you've ever been around a Patriot taking a shot. And round after round goes out and guides against those missiles coming inbound. We believe that this is the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history. And we were joined in this engagement by the Qatari Patriot crews. I'm not going to tell you how many rounds were shot, but it was a bunch because of classified purposes. And we're aware that there's reports of something getting through. What we do know is there was a lot of metal flying around.
And there are reports of some getting through. That is not actually what I have been reading.
Being hit by Patriots, The Patriots themselves flying around, and the debris from those Patriots hitting the ground, there was a lot of metal flying around. And yet our U.S. air defenders had only seconds to make complex decisions with strategic impact. These awesome humans, along with their Qatari brothers and sisters in arms, stood between a salvo of Iranian missiles and the safety of Al Udeid. They are the unsung heroes of the 21st century United States Army. And I know a lot of you have seen the videos online and the excitement as those Patriots departed their launchers and went up and guided. This really demonstrates the combat capability and capacity of our Army air defenders. Simply stated, they absolutely crushed it. If you'd flip this over, thanks. Let me next move to a walkthrough of the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator weapon and share a little bit about the planners who did this and their work on the weapon. First, let me set the stage for you.
This sounds so clean. It's insane. Like,
let this guy set the stage for us.
It's crazy.
By the way, if you're not watching on YouTube, I do have this sped up a little bit. If it sounds
There's
weird.
An organization in the U.S. called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. DTRA does a lot of things for our nation, but DTRA is the world's leading expert on deeply buried underground targets. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. For security purposes, I'm not going to share his name. He was shown some photos and some highly classified intelligence of what looked like a major construction project in the mountains of Iran. He was tasked to study this facility, work with the intelligence community to understand it, and he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordo, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. He studied the geology. He watched the Iranians dig it out. He watched the construction, the weather, the discard material, the geology, the construction materials, where the materials came from. He looked at the vent shaft, the exhaust shaft, the electrical systems, the environmental control systems, every nook, every crater, every piece of equipment going in and every piece of equipment going out. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work. And they knew from the very first days what this was for. You do not build a multi-layered underground bunker complex with centrifuges and other equipment in a mountain for any peaceful purpose. They weren't able to discuss this with their family, their wives, their kids, their friends, but they just kept grinding it out. And along the way, they realized we did not have a weapon that could adequately strike and kill this target. So they began a journey to work with industry and other tacticians to develop the GBU-57. They tested it over and over again, tried different options, tried more after that. They accomplished hundreds of test shots and dropped many full-scale weapons against extremely realistic targets for a single purpose: kill this target at the time and place of our nation's choosing. And then, on a day in June of 2025, more than 15 years after they started their life's work, the phone rang and the President of the United States ordered the B-2 force that you've supported to go strike and kill this target. Yesterday, I had the incredible honor and privilege of spending time with these two Defense Threat Reduction Agency officers who've given so much. One of them said, quote, "I can't even get my head around this. My heart is so filled with the pride of being a part of this team. I am so honored to be a part of this." To you both, thank you, and thank you to your families.
Someone's asking if I'm going to cover shit happening in Poland.
The air crews, the tanker crews, the weapons
what do you
crews
think is happening in Poland?
The load crews that loaded it. Before I run through this video today, I want to talk a little bit about weaponeering.
I know some people think they're going to get invaded
into an attack. Weaponeering is the science of evaluating a target. I mentioned all of those factors before that these two DTRA officers had thought about. Ultimately, weaponeering is determining the right weapon and fuse combination to achieve the desired effects and maximum destruction against a target. In the case of Fordo, the DTRA team understood with a high degree of confidence the elements of the target required to kill its functions, and the weapons were designed, planned, and delivered to ensure that they achieve the effects in the mission space. By the way, in the beginning of its development, we had so many PhDs working on the MOP program, doing modeling and simulation, that we were quietly and in a secret way the biggest users of supercomputer hours within the United States of America. So let me talk about the graphic a little bit. And the GBU-57, which all of you I know is a 30,000-pound weapon dropped only by the B-2. It's comprised of steel, explosive, and a fuse, programmed bespokely. It uses effectively what tells the bomb when to function. A longer delay in a fuse, the deeper the weapon will penetrate and drive into the target. So on Fordo, in June of 2008, you can see these three holes. Depicted here is the main exhaust shaft with two additional ventilation shafts on either side. The United States decided to strike these two ventilation shafts, as seen here on the main graphic, as the primary point of entry into the mission space.
Why did he say June 2008?
The attack against Fordo, the Iranians attempted to cover the shafts with concrete to try to prevent an attack. I won't share the specific dimensions of the concrete cap, but you should know that we know what the dimensions of those concrete caps were. The planners had to account for this They accounted for everything. The cap was forcibly
Yeah, there were
removed
reports that
by
they
the
had
first
like
weapon,
filled
and
in
the main
tunnels
shaft
with
was
cement
uncovered.
and things like
Weapons
that. That's what
2,
he's talking about now. He's
3,
talking about the cement
4,
cap.
5 were tasked to enter the main shaft, move down into the complex at greater than 1,000 feet per second, and explode in the mission space. Weapon number 6 was designed on each side, so there were 6 on each side. Weapons number 6 was designed as a flex weapon to allow us to cover if one of the preceding jets or one of the preceding weapons did not work. The video I'm about to show you is a culmination of over 15 years of development and testing. As I said, hundreds of test shots on various models.
Here, some of you might have already
This
seen
is
this
one
video
weapon.
footage.
So if you take a view of this as 5 additionals, you'll get a sense of what this looks like. Hopefully you can see it and there's not too much reflection. Tom runs our videos out there. We'll run it at full speed so you can see it and then go back through it. Go ahead, Tom.
See if I can get this better for you guys. Turn on the lights for this one.
Keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space. Unlike a normal surface bomb, you won't see an impact crater because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has 3 effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure. In this case, the primary
these
kill
bombs
mechanism in the
don't
mission space was a mix of
explode on the
overpressure
surface.
and blast,
They
ripping through
burrow
the open tunnels and destroying
and
critical
explode
hardware.
below
The
the
majority
surface.
of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over. A point that I want to make here: the Joint Force does not do BDA. By design, we don't grade our own homework. The intelligence community does. But here's what we know following the attacks and the strikes on Fordo. First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. 2, the weapons were released on speed and on parameters. 3, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. 4, the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded. We know this through other means, intelligence means that we have, that were visibly, we were visibly able to see them. And we know that the trailing jets saw the first weapons function, and the pilots stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight." Let me now turn to the bomber crews themselves, give you a few details about them. The crews that attacked Fordo were from the active duty Air Force and the Missouri Air National Guard. The crews ranked from captain to colonel, and most were graduates of the Air Force Weapons School, headquartered at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. I will state for the record that there is no beach volleyball or football at the Air Force Weapons School. They were male and female aviators on
Is that
this
like an
mission.
inside
And
joke?
A crew member told me when I talked to them on
Is
video
this,
the other day, this felt like the Super Bowl. The thousands of scientists, airmen, and maintainers all coming together. One last story about people.
Is that a Top Gun
when the crews
reference?
went to work on Friday, they kissed their loved ones goodbye, not knowing when or if they'd be home.
Boy, this
Late
guy's
on
really
Saturday
trying
night,
to
their
spice
families
up
became
this
aware of what was
boring
happening. And on Sunday,
presentation.
when those jets returned from Whiteman, their families were there. Flags flying and tears flowing. I have chills literally talking about this. The jets rejoined into a formation of 4 airplanes followed by a formation of 3 and came up overhead Whiteman, proudly in the traffic pattern, pitching out to land right over the base and landing to the incredible cheers of their families who sacrifice and serve right alongside their family members. Like I said, there were a lot of flags and a lot of tears. One commander told me this is a moment in the lives of our families that they will never forget. That, my friends, is what America's Joint Force does. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we test, we evaluate every single day. And when the call comes to deliver, we do so. I could not be more proud standing up here today of our Joint Force. I'm filled with gratitude that I get to tell their story. And as we stand here right now, our forces remain on a high state of readiness in the region, prepared to defend themselves. And one last thing, our adversaries around the world should know that there are other DTRA team members out there studying targets for the same amount of time. And we'll continue to do so. Thank you very much. I apologize for the length. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just thank you, by the way, for that extensive work you laid
slow
down. I mean,
it
even
back
that laser pointer. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Squaring me away as always. I mean, even in just the public reporting, if you see the post-strike shaft of the 3 holes, the vast majority, and fairly so, the vast majority of speculation has been those are the 3 strike points. When in actuality, what you realize is these are the vents, these are the caps. The first munition took the cap off.
Yeah.
And the other 5 went down the center hole, which if you're planning the target, you would want it to be the direct one going to the bottom. These are the types of things.
To be clear, if you thought those 3 holes were the entire
that,
extent of the damage,
we wouldn't,
you weren't
Pentagon
paying
would not
attention.
expect the press corps or the American people to initially understand. So laying this information out is helpful. But it's also why we ask for a beat, for a moment, for a day or two, the opportunity to tell that story. Because as the chairman said, these men and women that did this mission, they just want to do their job. They're not expecting their story to be told. They're not expecting the glory. They are grateful for the flags and the hugs of family. That's why they do the job. But they also know they were a part of something historic. We know how historic it was. The chairman does. I know. Our staffs know.
And you should all report it.
And the president of the United States knows. And that's why it's almost personal when we see the way in which
clearly
leaks
taking
are
it very
used to
personally.
try to disparage the outcome or muddy the waters about the impact of what happened without being responsible with information and allowing the professionals to assess and provide that information just like the chairman did. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that information, and we welcome a few additional questions. Yes, sir.
General, on Sunday you said final battle damage will take some time, and you also said, I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there at the nuclear facility. So that was just over 3 days ago. So what has changed? Would you use the term obliterated as well?
Sure, like I said, we don't do BDA. I'll refer that to the intelligence community. And
Bondage, domination,
what changed
and
in the past 3 days that make you
sir, I think I said.
I think I explained what changed. There was a great deal of irresponsible reporting based on leaks, preliminary information in low confidence.
Yeah, nothing
Again,
changed.
When someone leaks something,
there was more information.
They do it with an agenda. And when you leak a portion of an intelligence assessment,
oh
but just
God.
a little
Go
portion,
off, Pete.
Just a little portion that makes it seem like maybe the strike wasn't effective, then you start a news cycle, whether it's the Washington Post or Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. You start a news cycle that starts to call into question the ethics. Well, that's why. So you bring the chairman here, who's not involved in politics. He didn't do politics. That's my lane to understand and translate and talk about those types of things. So I can use the word obliterated. He could use defeat, destroy, assess, all of those things. But ultimately, we're here to clarify what these weapons are capable of, which anyone with, 2 eyes, some ears, and a brain can recognize that kind of
2 eyes,
with
some
that
ears.
specificity at that location and others is going to have a devastating
How many of you
effect.
have a different
So we
number of
all
ears from
recognize
eyes?
There will be days and weeks ahead. That's why yesterday
Tell
I
me in
said,
the
if you
chat.
want to know what's going on at Fordo,
our body doesn't need to be fixed. Our body doesn't need one supplement after the other of filling in the gap. What our body needs
Well, you might need
is
some
a
supplements,
reminder of
depending
how
on
to
what you're
do
deficient in.
you better go there and get a big shovel.
Just to be clear.
Because no one's under there right now. No one's under there able to assess, and everyone's using reflections of what they see. And that's why the Israelis, the Iranians, the IAEA, the UN, to a man and to a woman who recognize the capability of this weapon system are acknowledging how destructive it's been. So that's what's changed.
Just 3 or 4 days later. What
See, this is a point. This is how difficult it is to actually manage.
Well,
You
you're
just
not
watched
really answering
a video of what this
the
weapon
question.
is capable of.
The
That's
answer
where we
is
find
really
the
that nothing
confidence in skilled
changed. It's
men
just
and
that the
women
full
and
assessment
capability
was
of the
finished.
systems they employed, and the
The
recognition so
eyes
far and the
for
reflections that it was a
47%.
highly successful mission.
Sure, I think you could. I'd say go out. The IC should be able to help you answer that question. They look at a variety, as the secretary has alluded to. We look at a variety of things. I don't do that. They do. All different sources of intel, which I'd refer you to them to get clarity on the and
So again, I go back to the IC, whether it's Director Radcliffe or Odie and I.
This poor
Gavin, I
guy.
read the statements at the beginning. They're the
He
ones
looks so uncomfortable
aggregating the
while,
intelligence, and they're saying nuclear
Hanks has
facilities
reprimands
were
the
destroyed and they have
press.
to be rebuilt over a number of years. Facilities were destroyed. What do we got right here?
So you cited a body of credible intelligence to suggest that the damage at Fordo and other places. What is that referring to, and when can we see it?
I was reading from the CIA director's statement, which came out last night. CIA, again, they do the BDA, they do the assessment. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates, it also goes on to say, new intelligence from historically reliable and accurate sources and methods. Now, you can imagine the CIA director is going to be very careful about how he articulates things of that sensitivity. Classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized. He's going to know things that you're not going to know. that the press isn't going to know, and he's reflecting that the sources he's seeing are highly credible. They've given credible intelligence. They are those.
Poppy says that CIA stands for Credible Intelligence Agency,
and that's what he's basing it on.
You think we need to see
obviously.
Do you have
as we all know,
clearance, sir?
Eventually, the American public wants to see it.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask briefly just.
No, not you. Checkered shirt.
Oh.
So Mike,
yes.
Not you. Shut up. That guy.
Who's ever read a Battalion S2 report after a fight knows that it's usually, the initial report is usually wrong, sometimes grossly so. Has what happened in this incident caused y'all to sort of rethink the intelligence process or the dissemination, or do you think it's just a matter, I mean, if the process itself doesn't require any more adjustment?
Well, I can tell you what the chairman told me in the Situation Room and reminded us all, which is alongside what you just said, sir, is that the first reports are almost always wrong. They're almost always incomplete, right? You anything, whether it's a squad level.
Yeah, don't come over here, dude. I'm not the one coming at you.
Are coming at you at a high rate of speed from a lot of different sources. So your job is to step back and assess them, and that's why we're urging caution about premising entire stories.
Just set the record straight, dude. You don't have to yell at everybody for getting it wrong.
Look back. How about we take a beat, recognize first the success of our warriors,
all right.
hold them up, tell their stories, celebrate that, wave an American flag, be proud of what we accomplished, and in the meantime, I can assure you, the chairman and his staff, the intelligence community, our staff,
be
and
proud
others
of what we
are
accomplished.
doing all the assessments necessary to make sure that mission was indeed successful.
You know, to be clear, when the news broke, nobody knew what was going to happen.
That their nuclear program was indeed
we don't know what the outcome was. Now we know.
Also said that the U.S. tries,
or at least we have a better idea.
Strengthen their ability and their determination to complete their nuclear program. How do you respond to that, sir? Is that a provocation from Iran?
Well, I would say Iran's going to have to say a lot of things right now in order to bolster their image, especially internally.
There you go.
In the media, there's a lot of things they'll say for domestic consumption. But we're watching very closely what they do. Again, that's the intel community. Our job as the chairman, the chairman laid it out so beautifully. Our job is to be prepared. And how proud are you?
It's like he's putting his arm around me.
I didn't know the full story of those men and women 15 years ago who've been pointing at that target. That makes me proud to be an American. That's an awesome story. I hope we can tell more aspects of that in an unclassified way in the future. That's a great thing to know. Our job is to be prepared when the commander-in-chief calls based on those assessments. So, of course, our IC, the Intelligence Committee, will keep watching what Iran does and pay attention to that. But the president has created the contours, the opportunity for a deal, for peace, in something that the world said was intractable. That wasn't
It's less
possible.
believable
And we
when you
got
say
that
it
peace,
with
that
this
ceasefire,
tone.
that option,
To
because
me.
of strength. Because of his willingness to use American military might that no one else on the planet can
But
do.
he's saying it
with
like
the kind
such a
of
little
planners and
brat.
operators that the chairman just laid out. Yes, sir. Right there. Yep.
Yes, sir. Just a quick question.
Strong point.
I'm sandwiched between the two
That guy.
generations. I'm helping to give caregiver responsibility.
Sorry for the ads.
There's public imagery available saying that highly enriched uranium was moved out of Fordo before the strikes. Is that accurate? Have you seen that? And Mr. Chairman, a question for you. Have you been pressured to change your assessment or give a more rosy intelligence assessment to us by any political factors, whether it's the president or the secretary? And if you were,
this guy.
would you do that?
Yeah, well, that one's easy. No, no, I have not, and no, I would not. My job as the chairman is to offer a range of options to the president and the National Command Authority to deliver the risks associated with each of those, and then take the orders of the National Command Authority and go execute them. I've never been pressured by the president or the secretary to do anything other than tell them exactly what I'm thinking, and that's exactly what I've done.
Good
There's
answer.
nothing that I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance? Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst the one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president
Jennifer,
says.
you're the worst.
I'm familiar.
The ventilation shafts on Saturday night. And in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy.
Shit.
So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging
You
that
have
this was the first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that. So
I appreciate that. You're still the worst, but thanks.
Acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission. The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
So when I say something like our boys and bombers, see, this is the kind of thing the press does, right? Of course, the chairman mentioned.
It's not the kind of thing the press
fantastic.
does.
She's fantastic. She's
You could
a hero.
just.
I want more female bomber pilots. I hope the men and women of our country sign up to do such brave and audacious things. But when you spin it as, because I say our boys and bombers as a common phrase, I'll keep saying things like that, whether they're men or women. I'm very proud of that female pilot, just like I'm very proud of those male pilots. And I don't care if it's a male or a female in that cockpit, and the American people don't care. But it's the obsession with race and
some
gender,
people care.
In this department that's changed priorities. We don't do that anymore. We don't play your little games. Yes, right there.
Uranium was removed from the
I
facility
mean,
before the B-2 struck.
So
I think
I'm
it's
not aware
cool
of
that
any
there was a woman
intelligence
bomber, if
that I've
that's the
reviewed
case.
that says things were
I feel
not
like that's
where they were
important
supposed
to
be.
get other
Moved
women to
otherwise.
join.
Yes.
Kelly
To
Meyer,
acknowledge
News
that.
Nation, and just off the top, want to say we're grateful for the service of these pilots and everybody that serves. I wanted to ask you, the CIA statement said when possible,
This is our
they will
defense
provide updated
secretary.
information to the public for transparency, and I believe that's what we're looking for here. Do you commit to share the Defense Intelligence Agency report when it is ready, so the American people can understand more about the intelligence assessment?
Well, actually, the report that was discussed, this preliminary report, was what's called a restrike report. So it comes to us to give us an assessment whether a target would need to be restruck, right? That's the reason why. So it's based on internal feedback loop that
Too
we're
much
supposed to have
coffee
access
today,
to.
I
Unfortunately,
think,
someone
for
took
him.
advantage of that. But whatever is supposed to be made public will be, but whatever
More like
has to say
defensive
something.
secretary, says
One of the
Poppy.
things that I'm trying to do
Got him.
through this journey that we're on together, of course,
Just let this guy
transparency, but
talk.
also the requirement to really
He
protect
seems
these
pretty
capabilities.
even-keeled.
I guess the time's up. So there's a balance in there, right? We do need to preserve options.
Someone
should
said
the nation
coffee.
and the joint force be tasked to go do something again. So I'm confident we'll find the middle ground, but there are some things that if asked, I'd want to not release related to.
So we're going to leave it right there. I want to thank the heroism of our men and women in the military. What they accomplished is truly historic, setting back the Iranian nuclear program untold number of years. It was a devastating attack. We appreciate you covering it. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you.
Except for you, Jennifer. You're the worst. All right, so there you have it. I think that's all the videos I can stomach on this subject right now. So we watched the Iranian Supreme Leader talk about how he spoke to his people about the events. Then we watched how the Israeli Prime Minister talked about it. And then we just heard how the U.S. Defense Secretary is talking about it. So, as always, I'm never going to tell you what to think or how to feel about any of it. You have now watched it all, supposedly. Make up your own mind. Tell me what you think. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, obviously. I'm doing more lives on Substack also. There's a lot more content on Substack. That's also the best way to support me. So if you want to support me in the channel, which is just me, then by all means go to the Substack and help me out. Otherwise, thanks for giving a shit, everybody. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the little bell notification so you know when I'm going live. Thank you to Black Sheep, my only mod. Have a great